Paused. All right, so welcome to Full Moon Bag Sew Along. This is our first part where we're going to be reviewing our various pattern pieces. So we've taken a poll of the room, and the folks that have joined us, the majority of folks are making the full size, and then we have one half size person. I have cut out the full size pieces, but the instruction and assembly will be the same. All right, so I'm using 12-ounce cotton canvas. I'm curious if in the room what everybody's using for their material. If you've got a second and want to just pop that in the chat, I would love to hear what you're using. But you'll notice in most of our actual assembly instructions begin on page 16 of the pattern, and the very, very, very verbose pattern prep is all pages like 2 through 16. All right. But in summary, what she says is if you're using a heavy canvas, and okay, so we've got some canvas and everyone's kind of it's in between medium and heavy. So it's kind of choose your own adventure, which makes sense. Okay, Alicia is using medium weight 12-inch interface. So there you go. All right. So she recommends if you're using heavier weight, like bottom weight fabric or canvas, that you only need to cut out one piece of the bottom panel. I'm going to say too, if you, that big like rectangular piece, if you are interested in any of my little pattern hacks that I'm going to talk to you about, cutting a second rectangle will give you all the extra material that you'll need to do all my little changes. So if you've got some extra fabric to spare and can spare this much of it, you might want to cut that out to do the things I'm going to talk to you about, but you certainly don't have to. So depending on the weight of your fabric, you can cut 1 or 2 pieces of this bottom weight. If it's medium or your fabric has any stretch to it whatsoever, I definitely would recommend cutting 2 pieces of this for assembly and then tacking them together. The other thing that both sizes will have is our zipper facings, and then you need to finish one side of the zipper facing. So I've used my serger, but you can use pinking shears, you can use your zigzag stitch on your sewing machine. You could use twill tape here, but that's going to add some bulk in kind of an awkward spot. So I'd recommend finishing either with pinking shears or a zigzag stitch and finish just one side of both of those. And then you've got your circle pieces, 2 of those, and your pockets, 2 of those. So that's what you're looking for. And then you need a zipper in the corresponding length. So for a big boy, you need 12. And I believe for a little guy, it's 7 or it's 8. It's 8. So those are our main pieces. And then the next thing for you to decide is what you want to do about your strap. Curious for those present, who is doing a fabric strap with their fabric they're working with? Got one, 2. All right. Amanda's doing something a little different.
I just totally forgot about the strap and just remembered
strap whatsoever. All right, so a clutch. Amanda's making a clutch, which will be so elegant. That's awesome. So I'm going to be talking through strap options, and you don't necessarily have to commit, but it'll just be a little bit annoying later. But I have one sample here that has the I made the strap out of the canvas. And then the other sample that I have that I'm going to be working on is the leather. So this is actually from the leather shop that she recommended on Etsy. This is made out of venison. It's deer leather, but if you have some values that do not align with wanting to use animal products in your purchases or in your makes, that's totally understandable. You could totally find some faux leather. You just want to go for the width of like a little bit under half an inch. Like 1/3 of an inch width is really going to get you where you need to go. Oh, okay. Rochelle's going to do a chain. So she made some attachment tabs. I like that. Nice. So we do install the strap first thing, but you can work around it, and I could talk to you about that later, Amanda. No big deal. So One thing, and this, I wish I had a little bell or something where I can talk to you about how I'm going to do something different than the pattern recommends. But one thing that I have found making this pattern over and over again is that I've done a lot of light exterior bags, and I wanted to do a bag that has a dark exteriors for this round of makes. But as many as you might know, if you're a frequent like bag buyer like me, when you look into a bag that has that's made of dark material and there's no light lining, it can be really hard to see what's going on in your bag. Like this isn't bad because I have 2 ring lights fired into here, but it's, you can see like if I'm looking in here, there's a lot of shadows. It's a little hard to see what's going on. So I'm going to do not really a lining, but I'm just tacking a lighter fabric to the outside of my pattern pieces. So I've started this one already for our sample. But just to give you a sense, like to do a little comparison. So then we just peeked in with an unlined, and then with it lined, you can see it's a lot easier to like see the bottom. When I open up this pocket, I can really see what's going on in there a lot more than I would if this was all burgundy. So I want to do a little bit of a lighter fabric for these pieces. Plus I have this really beautiful lining. This is just like the most gorgeous thing I've ever seen. And I want to look at this inside my bag. I love this fabric. I use it in everything. So, and I just so happened to like find this teal as a not a mill end, but a remnant at Joann's, and I thought that's perfect for my little thing. So I have gone ahead and just basted this fabric on at 1/8 of an inch around the bottom piece and the inside of the 2 circle pieces. I went really above and beyond for the other sample I was just showing you, and I put the fabric on the inside of one of the pocket pieces, but it's a gift and I'm being all fancy and this is just kicking around my house, so I'm not going to do all that. But that gives me a very clear right side and wrong side for this. And if you are using something, your denim will have like a right side and a wrong side, but if you're using something that doesn't have a right side and a wrong side, you'll just want to pay attention to where you're going to install these wider pockets, which we'll talk about. Okay. So that's one thing that I'm doing that's a little bit different than the pattern. And then the next thing that I'm going to do that's different than the pattern will be after we get the zipper installed. So we're going to talk, oh yeah, sorry. The other thing that we need handy is some either pre-made bias tape or make your own bias tape. This is 1/2 inch wide double fold, which means that it's been folded in half once from either side, and then folded in half again to give you a nice clean edge. And this is how we're going to finish a lot of our seams. So having this pre-made stuff is the bomb. But if you don't have it, you can certainly make your own. You'll want to make sure that you can do it just under 2 inches. It's like 1 7/8, and then you just cut a sheet that's 1 7/8 long of fabric, and then you fold in on either side at 1/4 of an inch, and then fold those together at 1/2 an inch, and you press and press and press and press forever and ever. Or you can just buy double-sided whatever that's called, twill tape. Not twill tape, bias tape. Caitlin is asking, is twill tape okay? It's all right, Caitlin. If it's wide enough to like sandwich your seam. So what we're going for is we're trying to take our seam and fold these over so that you all of the little snarly bits from when we sew together are under this twill tape. So if you can fold it over your seam and then not have a raw edge, which twill tape, because it's like woven like twill, shouldn't have a raw edge, it could work. It could work. So Rochelle says she is not going to be using bias tape at all, that you could zigzag the edges. So she is going to attempt that. So I wish you all the luck in the world with that, Rochelle. Love that for you. Okay, so now it's time for zipper installation. So the one thing this starts on page 16 for those of you reading the pattern at home. And the one thing that I would love to bring to your attention about the zipper installation that is a little bit counterintuitive is that you're going to, let me just zoom her in here. You're going to want to place your zipper edge along the finished edge. This can be a little counterintuitive. I always want to like place the zipper edge up to the raw edge, but you'll go ahead and put the zipper for the first part up against one of your finished edges, okay? And you want your notch that you cut out of your pattern, you want to go ahead and make sure your notch is included in the zipper pull section, and you want the notch to be on the other side of where you're going to start your zipper tape, okay? So place your zipper, like your zipper, line it up, pin the crap out of it along the finished edge. And then on either side, go ahead and like angle the tape like this and throw a pin in there. And then that'll help just get this out of your way so it's not bugging you later on in the process. So pick a side. Get everything pinned nicely, and then start sewing that along the raw edge. All right, and then we'll come back and do the second part of the zipper installation, and then I'll share with you my mind-blowing secret hacks. All right, hooray. Okay, so as you are finishing up that first side of your zipper, we had a good question in the group that we want to take it right to the edge and then sew it at 1/4 of an inch across. So it's pretty scant. It's not like real up close to the zipper pull, like zipper teeth. It certainly can be, but the way the pattern's written, you take it up right to the edge. So once you sew through that first seam, and then she recommends that you have your zipper about halfway open to get started, and then zip up that zipper once you get to the center part. I will show you that on this second part. We'll attempt to record me sewing. That always is a challenge. But once we're done with that portion, then we're ready to attach the zipper to the other side. So you can just kind of finger press this down for the moment. Once you've finished that first seam, if you're using a thicker fabric like my 12-ounce canvas, I don't need to do a whole lot of pressing. I really can get away with just kind of using my fingernail and friction, and it presses down really nicely. But I can see that's nice and straight. It's laying down well. I'm good to go there. So then I'm just going to flip this over. So I'm making sure that my right side of this is of my next facing is facing up. And I'm going to face the wrong side of the zipper down and next to it. This isn't super crucial, but when you'll want to check for that notch on the other side and just work on aligning the notches of these two. Just make sure they're relatively close so that you've got, both of your pieces centered. And then once you've aligned those notches, just scoop the part with the zipper on it down so that it's laying next to the finished edge. And then you can start pinning in place. So I like to pin starting from this edge because we have to do this little flippy thing. And my presser foot does not love that. So it's always kind of a battle. So I'm just pinning that in place first. And then I'll boogie on over here and open this about halfway. Make sure this is nice and lined up. Then I'll do the flippy and pin. And then I'll work on pinning the middle here. Now I'm a pretty loosey-goosey pinner for the most part, but for stuff like this, I always have trouble with zippers like shifting and whatever. So I'm not afraid to like kind of get in here and maybe over pin slightly. But if you're sewing dangerously like Rochelle, you can just go for it. But okay. So what's going on? I have my zipper foot out ready to go. So I'm getting my machine ready for this next part. camera, see if this works. Right. Let me just see what I'm doing here. Right. I'm not trying to make anyone sick, sorry. All right, so yeah, that'll be fine. So I'm gonna go ahead and see if I can get him a little closer. Suit it in. Woo. Yeah, that'll work. Now let's see if I can reach the presser foot, or not presser foot, the pedal with this new orientation of my sewing machine. This is just never a dull moment. I know this is thrilled to watch. Okay, I think I got it. Hooray. So I'm gonna go ahead and put my presser foot down right on top of that little fold and then take out my pin. And then I'll put my needle down to kind of anchor everything in place. And I've freed my foot, my pedal for my sewing machine. So life is so much easier for me now. I know you guys were worried. All right, so here we go. Boom, boom, back it up. And I'm just gonna work my way down. So this side of my zipper foot leaves me exactly 1/4 inch in, so it's pretty handy. And then when I reach that center part, this is always a little tricky, but I'm gonna go ahead, take that pin out so I don't stab myself. And then I am going to try to open up my zipper. So this giant circular pull here. So I'm just trying to like get that out of the way. Here we go. Whee! Now that's out of the way. Put it on down. You can already see when I took that pin out, see how this wants to like scoot down for me. So I'm gonna go ahead, just reposition everything, put that pin back. Here is where it's hard to make sure that see how that unfolded on me? That always happens. My presser foot catches it like that. So then I just raise my presser foot up and fold it under with this little point turner. Because don't encourage throwing your fingers into your machine. Hot take, I know. There we go. And then that kind of okay. So pretty self-explanatory. And then we can take a look at our work here. So let's see how we did. This is giving very like child's bedroom. Oh, I still have my stitch length on basting. Well, we're gonna pretend like I nailed that. Okay. So it's giving very child's bedroom, these color story, but I'm down for it. So this worked out great. I've got my I've been able to capture get the zipper tape out of the way with this little it almost looks like farfalle or whatever that little bow tie pasta is, but that's great. I've got little pasta bottom, pasta top, everything's out of the way. This is a good time to snip my threads. And then I can finger press because my next step will be to top stitch this. All right. All right. So finger pressing. And then Rochelle, this is where you would put your top stitching thread in if you want to use a different top stitch thread than your all-purpose, and we'll just top stitch down on either side of the zipper, and you're in good shape. The other thing, if you are a little concerned about your edges or whatever, you just want to relatively match up with the width of your bottom fabric. So you can see mine's not like 100% perfect, but I don't really mind. It's gonna work out just fine. But in a perfect world, this will be the exact width of your bottom. My bottom's a little bit over because I've got my lining in there, but if I flip it to the other side, it's a lot closer. So yeah, I'm happy with that. So that's what we're aiming for. Go ahead and sew your top stitching after you get your zipper assembled. And then we will start assembling the actual circle part of our bag. So this like outer body that has our zipper at the top, and then that goes all the way around. That's what we're going to be sewing together next. So I have my zipper pull with my top stitching, my perfectly imperfect top stitching right here. Who cares, right? So the zipper pull is happening here, and then everyone is working on that portion while I do this little discussion piece. But here is my zipper pull. You really do want to make sure that it zips and unzips. That'll be a huge pain in the butt if it doesn't and you do the whole installation. So give it a good test. That's great. And now we're getting ready to talk about the next steps. I want to talk about the anatomy of this bag a little bit to help you better understand the next adjustment I'm going to recommend. Okay, so the order of operations here for our bag, we've sewn the zipper pull here at the top, and now we're going to attach it either side to the big rectangular piece that goes along the bottom. And then we're going to make this little like shell of a circle, and then we're going to install the pockets or the outside pieces on either side, right? But before we start installing these outside pieces, we put our whatever we call this strap. We put our strap in first. And the thing that kind of annoys me in particular about this bag is that the way that it's designed, there's a really big hole at the ends of the zipper pull area for you to install your strap in, which is fine. But the hole makes it look a little unfinished to me. So I'm a big fan of putting these little flaps over to kind of hide that and make it look a little more finished. So I've experimented with this in a couple of ways, but I really like to place these little covers in while we're attaching the little outside, like the big long bottom rectangle and the top zipper pull. I like to throw an extra little cover piece in there to do it all at the same time. So that's why I wanted to talk through its anatomy a little bit. So let me show you. And when I had mentioned at the start that even if you were sewing with thick enough fabric that you're only going to use one rectangle, a bottom rectangle piece, I recommend cutting out two, because if you cut out a second one, all the other extra bits that you'll need for what I'm talking through you can cut from this one long rectangle. So I cut two of these long rectangular pieces, and from that rectangle, I have this much scrap fabric. I have these two little tiny pieces that I'm going to use to cover up the zipper. And then I was able to do the secret inset pocket as well. That is coming up, I believe, on page 20. Well, 20 something. It's a chatty pattern, but it's free. Beggars can't be choosers. 31. So the secret pocket on page 31, you can also cut out of this one rectangle of fabric. So here's my secret pocket ready to go. And then if you cut two rectangles, so the width of this is roughly 4.5 inches or 4 inches. Yeah, 4 inches. So then if you cut 2 1/4 inches rectangles and fold them in half, that gives you enough of little covers to then lay over these holes in the zipper tape. So it just, I like that more finished look that it gives, but you still have room to then on the inside place your strap in, and then you can top stitch over when that's all done. The downside to doing this is that it does add more bulk at this seam, and you will have to sew over that at a certain point, and it can break your needle. So that, it may not be worth it to you, but just a heads up that you will kind of have this like open area if you skip this step. So most people will, because it's not written in the pattern. This is just my little thing that makes my eye twitch. So this is what I like to do. So I'm going to just finger press these little rectangles that I made and place them in the mix when we get started with joining the zipper and the long rectangular piece. Okay, so that is going to happen here. So for those of you following along in the pattern, we have done the prep of the zipper, which takes us through page 20. And then we move into sewing up the side seams and then doing strap installation. Okay, so we're at the bottom of page 20 and talking about lining up the zip top. So if you're like me, you might not have the exact same width of the bottom and the top pieces. So I am going to just trim away the extra width here on the top and bottom so that the width matches the top. So it's not going to make that much of a difference in the end. So I'm going to go ahead and just trim everything down so that they're the same width. All right. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. And while I'm doing that, Rochelle, I'm not the same width this way, the same width this way. They will not be the same width this way. So don't slice on the sides, only along this top and bottom if they're not the same width. Okay. Just want to be clear about that. So while I'm doing that, Rochelle has a question. Can you make the hidden pocket from a thinner fabric or and make it wider for a phone? And you certainly can. It's totally up to you. You know what you want to do pocket wise. The only downside to adding a thicker pocket at that space is it might make your bag kind of collapse in on itself if your fabric isn't super sturdy and thick. So that's the only downside. So just trimming. Again, just this width this way. These are not going to be the same length. And it's gonna, cut some of my basting, and that's not a big deal. If I was being really thorough, I'd go back and rebaste, but no ma'am, Pam, no ma'am. Okay, so I'm closer in width now. That feel better about that. And I'm going to take a sec, trim these various threads, get them out of my way. And then I'm going to do the optional, put my little shield in there. And again, because I'm using such thick fabric, folding this in half is a little bit bold. What I could do is just kind of make this like sort of like mimic the top of a pocket, and then only have it be one thickness wide, but bucket. So that's what we're doing. We're saying fuck it. We're just putting it in there. So I've got my matching my raw ends of my folded piece to my raw end of the bottom piece. And then I'm putting my zipper pull over that with right sides facing. And then this is where pins and clips be your buddy. So I'm going to just flip it up. And then with a 1/2 inch seam allowance, just sew across. All right. So I'm going to do that. Questions, comments, concerns? Yes, Alicia.
One more time. What is the dimension of that little flap? I got a little derailed.
It's 4 1/4 inches wide and then 2 1/4 inches tall.
Finish like as it's fold over, or
yeah, good question. So it's a total. So like 4 1/4. Oops, this isn't helpful. Sorry.
Yeah.
So it's 4 1/4 wide and then 2 1/4 tall. And then
Got
you fold it over for like 1 1/8 inches.
Got it. Thank you.
Good question. And you can eyeball it, you know. I only bothered to attempt to measure it right before we got onto class today, but I've been just eyeballing it. But it was handy being able to just cut out that big rectangle and then, you know, make the smaller pieces out of it. So, and I pass that hot tip on to you. I'm not worrying about reversing on the ends here because we're going to cover this with bias tape. Okay, so then you can kind of see where I'm at, right? Like if I fold this down, I've got this laying here nicely, but it still moves out of the way for me to do my eventual strap install. And then I have this edge that's all sandwiched together. So from here, the pattern is telling us to go ahead and take our twill or bias tape. Oh, and it does say twill tape in the pattern, Caitlin, so you're in good shape. So we'll just take our insanely Miami Dolphins coloring bias tape and place it over this edge. We can leave the bias tape edges raw because they're going to get scooped up into the finished edge that we're going to do when we go around the circle. So that's cool. So I've got my little half fold. I'll just make sure that that's enveloped in there. This orange is a little more obnoxious than I thought it would be with the red, but we are just not giving a shit about that. And it's on the inside, so who cares? Boop. So I got my clippies. Throwing it down. All right, and now we've got our finished edge. So I have been a little unclear. So then we, okay, blah, 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 unfold the zip top and finger press the bouncing toward the base. Okay, great. Never mind. I am not unclear. I'm clear. So we're just going to make sure that the seam is going to naturally want to kind of point down towards your bottom triangle. And then once you do that, the pattern recommends finger pressing. You can also use your iron if you want. Just this seam right here, and then top stitching it down. Now, again, with mine, there's extra bulk here, so the top stitching might be a little bit extra challenging. But I'm going to try it. And then it's high stakes for those of us watching live and at home because I might just break a needle. And then if I do, I will just replace it. How about that? So this would be a point where if you're using different top stitching thread, you'd want to replace it or replace your top bobbin and do your top stitching. So my presser foot is having a hard time, or my feed dogs are having a hard time. There we go. Well, it's out of focus, but it's doing it. Now that it's in focus, this is probably when it'll break. So you can enjoy that. Hey, all right, it went. It went. It worked out just fine. Cool. So it looks pretty cute and profesh from this side, if I do say so myself. We have everything nice and top stitched down. We have our little flappy boy. And then this is a nice finished seam pointing in the correct direction. And that's what we're doing. And we're going to just, the next step is we're going to join this to make a circle and repeat the process on the other side. But this is where I'm being a fancy boy again and going to show you another potential pattern hack that has to do with the strap. Okay, so we have our friend, our 2 1/4 triangle friend that we will place with raw edges matching, right? So this is something I'm doing for this bag that's going to be a gift with the woven strap, because I don't know how long my friend wants their strap to be. Okay, so I had this idea that I'm actually quite thrilled with myself about. So this is mostly just a flex, and you all have to sit through and watch it. But I decided I put a little grommet through the middle of that triangle. Can you see that? And so I put a grommet through the middle of that rectangle, and then I can just feed the end of the strap through, and then she can determine how long she wants it, tie the knot, and then like trim the excess. So this is, you can make your strap adjustable if you want to. So you can see on the one side, we've got the rectangle in place. I've slid my I've like slid the strap in and sewn that in like we're about to do. But then on this other side, I punched a hole in the middle of the rectangle with this grommet, and then I can just feed that end through the grommet. And I think it's let me measure. Yeah, it's a 1/2 inch. This is a 1/2 inch grommet that's left over from a field bag. And then you can make your strap adjustable if you use this method. So if you don't want to do these rectangle things, you'll have your little gap there, but you could also install a grommet just below here and do the same thing. I got the idea because this pattern is essentially a direct copy of a Bagoo bag, the circle bag from Bagoo. And the straps on the Bagoo bag are both attached with these grommets on the side. So that's where I came up with the idea. And only having to attach one grommet very much appeals to me, because doing two is just, grommets are a pain in the butt. But it's really worth it. And I'm really proud of how it turned out. So thank you for letting me brag to you and celebrate with you. But I think it's cool as hell. So another idea. Thank you, Caitlin, for the heart. I appreciate it. I was really insisting on somebody praising me before I moved on to the next step, and I got it. So great. So yeah, when I installed the grommet, I just went right to the middle of the rectangle, punched a little hole in it, hammered it, and then I had the grommet. And the only thing that I had to be careful of when I was at this stage was just making sure that I wasn't sewing over the grommet in this part. So I really had to pay attention to my seam allowance to make sure it wasn't getting caught in there. And it didn't. So we have our one side done. And now we are here getting ready to do the other side in the same manner. So I've got the right sides facing each other. Yes, the right sides facing each other. I'm going to sew across here. And then I will finish the seam with my bias tape. And then I will do the top stitch just like we did. And then we'll be ready to talk strap installation. All right. Great. All right. So welcome to strap talk. So in terms of strap installation, then we have our little hole here and up here. So this is where you'll take your strap and just place it on through. If you're making your own, it'll look something like, oh my gosh, too many samples, everybody. But there it is. Jeez Louise. If you make your own, it'll look a little something like this. I believe she tells you to cut 1.5 inches and then fold it, similar to bias tape, fold the 2 edges in and then fold them in on themselves. And then I think she instructs you to do top stitching on both sides. Couldn't be me. I do on one side only. And my camera really does not want you to see. There we go. I do one side only. It works. It lasts, like, who cares? She doesn't recommend cutting it on the bias at all. Just go ahead and cut it along the width of the fabric, which is good because you don't want a lot of stretch here. And it ends up being just a hair under 1/2 inch. So what is that? 3/8 of an inch. It ends up being 3/8 of an inch wide. So that 3/8 of an inch will then slide very handily right into that hole. It's the right width. And then you can kind of place it down along the side of your fabric. And then you can just sew it into place on this side. And then it's the same deal where you'll determine the strap length that you want and then take the other end, making sure not to twist it, place it in the hole by the zip end, work it down, and then sew it into place. All right. So it's the same thing with a leather strap as well. I feel like I have my window open and I keep saying like strap so much, and I'm worried that my neighbors are going to think it's like sex stuff, but oh well. Okay, so with the leather, the more times you sew over leather, the weaker the leather becomes. Every time your needle punctures the leather, it makes a permanent hole. So if for some reason things go off the rails when you're trying to install a leather strap, you'll want to just completely remove that piece of leather, trim it, and start fresh. Okay. So at least the straps that are recommended in the pattern and are tanned from deer hide, they don't have a lot. You're not really gonna be able to like knock them up or like shorten them at the top, but so you kind of want to be ready to commit to the length when you do the second side. So I'm going to go ahead and just install the first piece of my strap here, and then I'm going to let it hang out until I'm ready to finish the bag, and then I'll place it when the bag is finished. So that's going to be my play. You can do whatever you want. All right. Then once I have this installed, I will go ahead and just top stitch over either side of my little flap here just to tack that down so this isn't like constantly flapping, and then it'll kind of mimic the top stitching here and be nice and uniform. So pay no attention to this. This is where I cut off my basting, and this is just flapping and annoying me. This is not part of it. Don't do this. So I'm going to turn this inside out. And feed I'm going to start with the bottom end of my zipper, not the pull part. And I'm just going to feed that through. I'm going to have the right side of my leather facing down. So that way on the top, it's coming out with the right side on top. You can see there's one finished side of my leather and then one unfinished. So I want the finished side coming out of the bag. So I'm not going to pin this. This is kind of a pain in the ass because my strap is so long and it keeps running away from me. So I'm not going to pin this into place. I'm just going to kind of hold it in place. But that'll make this a little fiddly. So sorry in advance. It's a little weird to watch, but you'll get the idea. So I'm just kind of winding the strap here. And I'm just doing my best to like line up my strap with the teeth of my zipper so that I'm not accidentally sewing it at a weird angle and then it kind of comes out of my purse at a weird angle, you know? So if I align that, this is not super exact, so I'm just going to make sure it's laying flush. Come on down. I'm going to go to the outside, to the right outside of the strap and put my needle down. And then very slowly holding onto the leather at the top here and just kind of guiding the fabric back here. You can't really see my hand back here, but I'm pinching the strap to the zipper and I'm just going to gently pull along as I sew. And I'm not using a special needle here, but I'm going super slow. Now that I'm at the corner, I'm going to turn. Presser foot down. And that's only like 2 stitches. And I'm going to turn at the next corner, gently work my way up. Back. Work 2 stitches to get to the next corner. Not perfect, but fine. And then I'm going to do like a little X or half an X really. I'm going to go from this corner down to this corner. I'm going to just kind of line this little notch up with that bottom corner and slowly make my way down. And then my machine has this little button here, right here, that ties a knot. And I'm tying a knot. And if I really wanted to, I could go ahead and just finish out this X on the other side and come down this way, but I don't want to puncture more holes in the leather here. I feel like that's plenty. I've got a knot tied in there. I'm good to go. And then that's what it looks like on this side. Pretty chill. If this were a cloth, I would do the X. I would complete the X if this was a cloth strap. And there it is. It almost looks like a little buttonhole. All right. So that is the strap installation. All right. So again, if you already know the length that you want, we can remove spotlight here. And I can say hi to you up here in my glamorous sewing outfit. Hello, look at my glamorous sewing costume. You can do a try on at this point. It's going to look like you have do you like my shorts? It's going to look like you have a beautiful bag skeleton, really. But, this is generally the shape, right? So you could put your strap on. If you plan on wearing it like crossbody, for example. And then just making sure your strap isn't twisted. You can feed the front of the strap. Here, and you can kind of get a sense, obviously this is going to be higher, but then you can kind of estimate how long you want your strap from here. So if you want to do it at this point, a little try-on's always in order. You can also pin one of your circles to the side so that it'll stand up and give you a better sense. I think for me, it's going to be somewhere in here for sure. But, spend some time in the mirror, figure it out. I'm going to mark this for myself. for later. Just to see, this is where I think I would cut it, but just using a little Sharpie, marking it, and then come back. What's the point? All right. Okay, so we're gonna go do a quick check-in with everybody. And then our next step, that takes us to page, there's a lot of strap install talk through page 25. And then on page 26 is when they talk about the creation of how to make your own fabric strap and assemble. So same thing. So yeah, we're going to do a quick check-in, and then we're going to talk about assembling our pockets. So we're going to talk about assembling these pockets, assembling a secret pocket, and getting ready to format our outside pieces. All right, so that's coming up next. Well, tick tock, it's pocket o'clock. Boom. It's time to talk pockets. I totally stole that from a podcast called True Crime Obsessed. So if you listen to them, TikTok cult o'clock is their catchphrase. But all right, so this is where you get even more freedom within the framework with this pattern. All right, the way the pattern is written, it's written for you to have one outside pocket, and then have one of these like half pockets be on the outside, and then one of these half pockets be on the inside. But she says in the pattern, and I have done that on accident myself, you can have two external pockets if you wish. That is totally fine. The only downside to it is it can be a little flappy to have it on both sides, but it's really not a big deal. So then you can also have a secret pocket, which is right here. So you, in this particular option, I did two external pockets, and then I did one secret pocket on the inside, which was kind of cool. But as written, you have one outside pocket, and then open up, and then you have the half pocket on the inside, and then you can have a secret pocket inside of that. All right, totally up to you. You can mix match. You can totally omit the secret pocket. You can also omit the inside pocket. You can omit the outside pocket. You can just do circles. But for me, never enough pockets. So I like to include both of them when possible. For me, I also, when I was working on the fancy dancy lining in this gift bag that I'm working on, I've decided that I want to have one pocket on the outside, and then I wanted this pocket on the inside, and then I wanted my secret pocket, which is handily holding my bias tape. How clever. But I wanted to line the inside pocket to match the inside lining. So I added additional lining to this pocket to make it like extra fancy, but none of that is necessary. As written, it's all just like good to go, and you can determine how you want to approach this. Okay, for me, for my example here, I'm going to go ahead and have one pocket on the outside and then one pocket on the inside. I mean, I don't have lining in this one because I ran out of time, to be honest. So I'm just going to line this up on the wrong side here, and then this along that right side. And I'm going to baste along the edges to tack this in place. Okay. The other option that you have is a secret pocket. So this is what I was mentioning at the top of the program today, that when I cut the extra rectangle that could have potentially lined the bottom, I just cut this rectangle to be 6 inches tall, and then I folded it down in half and folded it again to make a little top lining piece. And then you can fold in the sides like so. And very coolly, you can just leave the bottom edge raw. You don't have to do anything to the bottom edge. And then you can place the secret pocket within this pocket. So you just find it, bring it down to the bottom and just let the corners kind of hang out. And then you can pin it in place. And then all you have to do is sew either side down, and then you'll leave this part open and then just trim it to match the circle, because you're going to just enclose that pocket when you sew your side seams, which is really kind of cool. So if you want to do the secret pocket, now's the time. You can install it on the wrong side of one of your pieces and then cover it up with a circular pocket. You can also not do a circular pocket, just do a secret pocket, or you can place it on the outside. Dealer's choice, y'all, whatever you think. So Rochelle was asking earlier, could you make this pocket wider, wide enough for a phone? You absolutely could. I have a giant, super tall phone, so my phone is like almost the height of this, so the pocket wouldn't be very pocket-y, you know? So I have better luck for my giant phone, just placing my giant phone in one of these sideways rather than trying to get it to stack up in a secret pocket. I like to use secret pocket for if I just want to take like an ID and one credit card out, or if I need to put my keys somewhere handy that I can find them again. That's where secret pocket can come really handy. All right, so this is where we're doing pocket prep. So our next steps will be, if you're installing a secret pocket, install it. If you're figure out which way you want your half moon pockets installed and baste them into place. Basting stitch, I'm going to use a 4.5 millimeter stitch, but I recommend going up to 5, and just keep it on the outside edge, as close to the edge as possible, about you know, 1/4 of an inch or so, and baste those into place. And once those are basted, then we can start prepping for installing our side panels. All right, any questions? Right, all right, I'll meet you back here when these are all basted. Bye-bye. So we were just chatting, Alicia's making the smaller size bag, and the pattern calls for an 8-inch zipper, which is not an easy to find size. So Alicia modified her pattern piece and was just showing us, let me spotlight you there, Alicia. So you modified for a 7-inch zipper, is that right?
I modified for an 8-inch, so I could find 8, but I just took the existing pattern piece, and then I so like for the zip shield on the edge of both sides, I wrote 7, 8, and 9. So this is the original size, and then if I did a 7-inch, I would cut to here, and then on the corresponding base piece, they're inverse of each other. Sorry, this is.
So I love that. So are those 1/2-inch increments then?
Yeah, and I did it on both sides so that you could preserve your middle
super smart
edge.
Because they're 1 inch longer than each other, but you take the inch out of either side of the piece.
Yeah.
My move would have not been that, which means so much better. I'm so bad at math. So thank you for helping us think through that. So if you are like a lot of us using stash and like stash, not only stash fabric, but stash like zippers, whatever you've got lying around, that's a good way to modify the zipper shields to work with whatever zipper you might have on hand. So thanks for that. Thanks for that, Alicia. So just a quick note and a correction from earlier. The note is, so here's my secret pocket installed, and you can see I don't have the bottom done because it's just going to be sewn up when we go along the sides. But I wanted to show you, this is what the right side of the fabric will look like once you install your secret pocket. So that'll be what faces the world. So if you don't love the look of this, that might be a vote for you to put your one pocket on the outside over this particular section. But if you don't mind, then you could do your inside pocket over this and get that, really put the secret in secret pocket know what I'm saying? But I did want to give you the heads up. If you install the secret pocket, you will have visible stitching on the other side. So if your thread isn't an exact match or you don't like that kind of thing, then don't do it. All right. The correction that I had was for making woven straps. The installation instructions tell you that you should wait to do the twill tape or the bias tape over the seam and fold your woven strap inside the bias tape and then sew over that. But you can, but then you're really super committed to that particular length. So for me, I recommend finishing your bias tape or your faux bias tape that you've made to make your strap. You're going to have one raw edge here. You can just do what you would do with bias tape, which is unfold the edge of your fabric, fold it up about 1/4 of an inch, and then refold everything, both the sides. And pressing will help this wet. And then fold in half again. And then you don't have any exposed raw edges. And then you can just tack that in place. So I'd recommend doing that rather than enfolding it all in the same bias tape piece, but totally up to you. So that was a correction. Thanks to Eagle Eye Caitlin that I wanted to make for the future record. All right. So we are continuing on with our pockets. We're basting away, and then we're going to get ready to set up and get everything sewed in a big circle. Boom, boom. Okay, so we have been pocket placing. We have done all of those things, and now we are checking the pattern to see what actual page we're on. Okay, great. So we've done all the pocket presets. That takes us through page 32. And then on page 33, it's having us place some notches. So generally, this is going to help us place our circle in our little circle frame that we've made. So nothing too crazy about this. You just kind of fold your circle in half, and it might be a little tricky with your pockets, but just fold your circle in half and kind of wherever those two edges, those two creases on the edge, make a tiny notch on either side there. And you've got a lot of fabric here, so make it a small notch and make sure your scissors are nice and sharp to cut through all the different layers. And then you'll just meet those two notches together. This should be, if you join me for bucket hat, this should feel pretty familiar. For how we were notching the circle of our hats as well. So again, boop, little notches. So you'll do that on both of your circles. And then you'll also do that for your frame, okay? So you'll already have a notch on your zipper facing, so you can use that to kind of fold your frame in half and then just kind of tug down on the other side, and then wherever that falls here, you'll place a notch here and here, very shallow, and then you'll join those notches together up here, and then on either side just notch out here and here. Those, it might align with where your bias tape is, or it might be a little bit south of that, but wherever it lands, that's where your notches will go, and you'll make sure to have those notches on both sides. And that is page 33 and 34. And then we're just going to do the big alignment, the big merger on page 35, right? So let me just get my notches in place over here. And then we'll talk merging, okay? So these are all in place to help you ease out some of those edges of the circle. And if you're using nice thick fabric, which most of us are, you know, it's going to take a little bit of maneuvering, which is fine. There we go. So this is where our friend quilt clips will really come into play. I normally, as I mentioned in bucket hat sew along, I'm a big fan of pinning at this stage normally, but because I am using such thick canvas, the quilt clips are really going to be my go-to with this process. Okay, so we're going to just pick a side, and this is where you'll have to just really kind of talk yourself through it, because this can be confusing, especially if you don't have a clear right side and wrong side like I do. It can be a little bit confusing, but you're going to turn your little circle, like your outer edge, so that the wrong side of your zipper is facing out. Okay, and you'll have to just kind of maneuver your strap so that it's not annoying. For me, because I'm going to determine my length later, I'm just going to kind of wrap this up and throw a little rubber band on it because it is annoying. And then I'm going to just make sure that the right side is facing inside when I get ready to place my first pocket. So I don't really care which side, if it's either like the right side or the left side that has my outer pocket on it. You know, I could think about this, like if it really matters to me, which side my zipper pull is on relative to like where my outside pocket is. That's all stuff you can think about. It's not stuff that I think about. So I'm not going to really dive into that too deep. I'm just going to put one side on. So that's as much thought as I'm giving it. But this is the time, if that kind of stuff, those details matter to you, to really think, you know, give yourself time to think it through. So you're going to find your notches, again, with your right sides together. Find your notches at the top of your circle and then the top of your zipper facing. And join those bad boys together with a clip. And then we'll boogie on down, find our bottom notch and our bottom notch. Well, we'll try. Let's see if I did on the other side. Well, in a classic case of do as I say, not as I do, didn't quite get there. So let me put these side notches together and clip that bottom notch a little more aggressively. Great. Okay, now bottom notch to bottom notch, clip. And can you see where I'm going with this? We're going to our side notch and lining up our side notch. And the other side. Woo. And again, making sure that my strap is out of the way, not getting somehow caught in these side seams. Okay, great. Time to be real. I will not be able to be real. Caitlin, you'll have to do it for me. So then we have sort of our funky tambourine, right? So again, similar approach to when we were dealing with our bucket hat. We want to just, we've done 4 points of contact on our circle, and now we want to like divide the wedges. And so we want to divide those 4 points in half. So we're going to clip in the middle of each of those 4 points. And for me, there is another instructor that runs around the LauraAllyson.Party who does not believe in clipping tails ever. I like to clip them as I come to them. So you can choose your own approach. But I have a lot of basting here and all these little ends and they're driving me nuts. So I clip as I come to them. I'm dividing this in half and clip. And divide this in half and clip. So it's really dealer's choice. If as you're sewing, if you want to sew with this outside part under and you want to sew along the inside piece, or if you want to place the flat outside piece down and then sew along the outside edge. It's totally up to you. I will say that it's more likely that this outside edge piece will create rippling and get little puckers in it. So it's nice to have your eye on that as you sew. So I like to place the bottom down for my feed dogs and then kind of keep an eye on all these little crinkles as I sew. So that's going to be my move, but you can choose your own adventure. So now I've got clips in place in 8 different spots. And now I'm just going to kind of look at where things are really rippling and get my clips in there. So again, it's a like a ludicrous amount of clips, but it makes me feel better. So you can do you, if you prefer to just kind of ease this stuff out as you go, I love that for you. If you always have trouble with puckering when you're working in circles like I do, oh cool, thanks for joining, Caitlin. Have fun at Sock Pals. See you later. And yeah, so we just keep flipping. Anybody else off to Sock Pals as well? Just Miss Caitlin? Okay. Alrighty. So we're just clipping. And to me, this is where things start getting like hilarious. Like it just looks like the most bizarre tambourine in the world. And you know, one of my favorite drag queens, Trixie Mattel, talks about how like drag is just like so stupid and weird until you put the wig on right at the last minute. And then it all comes together. And I think the same thing applies to like making, like it's like if you're sewing this, like knitting a sweater or you're sewing this project, like right up until the moment where you do your finishing, you're like, what the fuck is this? This looks crazy. And then right at the last minute, it looks amazing. So if you're looking at this and you're just like, what in the COVID-19 looking virus have you made here? Just, you know, have faith. It's stupid right up until the end. But it seriously does look like the coronavirus. That's really funny. All right. So now we're going to sew this bad boy. And again, our focus is getting our strap out of the way the best we can and going slow. The biggest pain points will be right in here because you have so much fabric at this tack down edge. So go very, very slow around your finished edges at the end of the zipper tape. And just, yeah, take your time. All right. So I'm going to live sew. Oh my god. And this is where in Bucket Hat I broke a needle. So, and everyone did fine and didn't get too upset. So that'll be our goal for this as well. Fine. If the worst happens, quote unquote. Easy fix. Just adjusting the camera back here. I'm going to start just under that that finished edge because of all the bulk. I'm going to do this at a 1/2 inch. And here's what I'm talking about, like, because I'm sewing with the outside edge down, I can see this like ripple happening and I can kind of push it out of the way. This is just a bone point turner, and I like to use that when I'm easing stuff out. So my fingers don't get involved in the process. Oop, I still have basting on, so let me not do that. And there we go. I'm gonna get to a clip, just taking it off and putting it in my wee yogurt jar. Woo-hoo. Nothing but the finest materials in this household. So if you're newer to sewing curves, which I don't think most of you are, if you're a garment sewist, kind of think of your left hand as sort of your guide and your right hand is kind of keeping your eye on the actual seam. So you can see that, like, I just let my left hand rotate with the fabric in the circle, and then I'm using my right hand to just like manage the seam line, the thing that's coming in toward the needle. Just smoothing out some of those ripples. Now, I have not checked in with my bobbin in a while either. So always good to do that before you start this process, because there is nothing worse than sewing a lovely curve and have your bobbin be empty. So just a reminder, check that bobbin. Okay, now I'm to my super bulky seam, so I'm going to take her easy. Okay, that went all right. All right, I'm coming up on bulky seam number 2. So, whew. All right. So now it's the moment of truth. How did we do? So we clip those. And we want to go from that nightmare tambourine to turning inside out and seeing how we did. Or turning right side in, I guess. All right, so we just kind of go along the seam. This is always the most challenging one. Got over it, that's good. Oh, good. I thought I had a little catch there, but we powered through. Right, I've got a little bit of my basting visible here. I can pick that out, no problem. Yeah, okay. All right, so aside from some little snarly bits, we did it. We've got a nice sturdy circle. So that's really passing muster. I'm looking for any kind of puckering or accidental gathers. And I'm just not seeing that stuff. Oh my God. So that's great news. And we've got my pocket in place. The only thing I might do at this stage is just go ahead and take a seam ripper to those basting threads. But that's pretty chill. Okay, so that's looking good. I'm pleased with that. And now it's time to finish that seam. So this is where our bias tape comes into play, or our twill tape. And you can already see just from turning this inside out and right side in once that I'm already getting lots of snarls because that's the nature of that canvas. It's a really thick weave, right? So one thing I'm going to do is just kind of make sure that like this part is I've got some like little overhang stuff here. I just want to trim that down to make it easier to fold up. I want to make sure I'm only cutting through the outside and not the actual seam or my hand. I'm just going to make sure that that's trimmed out. I'm going to cut this down a little bit just to reduce bulk where I can. Here. All right, and then we're just going to use bias tape to cover these seams. So I can show you in my earlier example, you can start your bias tape wherever, but I'm a fan. I like to start it at the top of your bag because that way, when you've got the little overlap pieces, and again, this is not perfect, but your little overlap pieces will then be inside. So as you open the bag, you're not going to see this. It'll be nice and tucked away, unless, as opposed to if you start at the bottom, that'll always be visible every time you open your bag. And obviously, nieces that are 6 years old may not care about that level of detail, but it also ensures a little bit more longevity. Like this seam is going to be fussed with the least at the top of the zipper. Then down here when people are like throwing stuff in, keys, whatever, lip glosses, and constantly grabbing. So placing them at the top of your bag is going to be a winning combo. All right. And it's the same thing that we did to close up these side seams. We're just going to close up all the way around this outside seam, and we're going to clip the shit out of it and just work our way around. So let me, I'll go ahead and turn the recording off while I place all the bias tape in place, and then I'll just come back to sew it, and I'll record when I sew. All right, great. See you in a few. All right, so here we go. I'm just starting on the side near my bulkiest little bit because that's what worries me the most. But I have, like we talked about, the start of my bias tape is at the top of the bag. But I'm always concerned about getting over these really bulky areas. So I'm going to start there first and go slow. Trying to get it focused up, but No, always a challenge. Hang on. Got lovely bits of hair there, sewing a bit of myself into the bag. My hope is that this salmon will calm down once it becomes part of the inside of the bag and I don't have 12 lights focused on it, but it's a bold choice for sure. But I believe our designer tells us that the bias tape is an opportunity to have fun, so we're just embracing that. All of this stuff on the inside of the bag, if you're planning on doing top stitching, you don't have to worry about it for the guts. Just use your multi-purpose. So I am doing the opposite here, where I'd have that outside of the bag facing up. I don't really have a particular reason for doing this. I just didn't think about it before I started hitting record, but it's just to show you that you can sew both ways. Doing another bobbin check, which I should have done before I started sewing. But this is the kind of stuff where your bobbin runs out on you. And then you are so sad. Oop. So my feed dogs got a little caught where I was doubling the bias tape, but that's going to be hidden at the top of my bag, so I don't care. All right, and how did we do? So I'm just checking the other side. Okay, so I got a little bit, I'm gonna have to unpick this because where I didn't base down, I got lazy and didn't base down my lining. I have some raw edges, but that's all right. But I did sew through both sides of my bias tape. So I got through there, which is good. This isn't perfect, but it's good enough for me. This is the top of my bag by my zipper where I've got my bias tape joining. And that is like a, C-, but it's done. So we love that. So I'm just going to mark this for myself for later to come back and unpick this and bury those raw edges so that that's taken care of. Okay. And then it's the same process for the other side. So again, you just need to pay attention to what your right side and wrong side is. And in this case, my right side has this visible stitching for my safer pocket. And I place that facing the inside of the bag. And I line up my notches and sew again. And then we, and we're back. And then we finish our seam, adjust our strap length, and that is truly it. So for recording purposes, that's the end of our sew along. Just do that again. And you've got a bag. And for the rest of us, we're going to be hanging out for the next half hour and just seeing how far we can get. So that is the story of the full moon bag. Thank you, people in the future, for checking this out. And when you finish, please post everything in the garment sewing area and let us know how you did. And then if you want to see this again as a live event in the future, just let me know because I'm happy to do it. I can't stop making this bag. And I like Amy's plan. And maybe the next time we can do the lined version when she and I get it all figured out because we're super geniuses. So thanks for watching, people in the future. And then people here, just keep hanging out. Happy to answer any questions. Bye.